So this is Robin Walters from TechCrunch. I'm here at the Next Web Conference in Amsterdam. I'm here with Mr. Timothy Ferriss, famous book author, speaker at conferences worldwide, and also a pretty prolific angel investor. So the last part is what I guess most people don't know about you. Mm-hmm. The fact that you invest in a lot of hot internet startups at the seed stage. Can you name some of the investments?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in Twitter, Dig, Stumble Upon, handful.
Posterous as well, one of my favorites.
Absolutely, yeah. Posterous, great guys. Foodsy, Rescue Time, Reputation Defender, a handful of companies from Techstars as well as Y Combinator, Daily Burn.
Simple Geo as well, right?
Simple Geo, absolutely, one of the more recent.
I hope to talk to Joe later on.
Yeah, very, very smart guy. But yes, about 15, between 12 and 15 total. And I'd say that a third of those are investment only. Pretty clean cut, actually. Another third would be investment plus advising, and then 1/3 are pure advising.
Right.
And doing more advising than investing. It's very hard to make the economics of angel investing work unless you have a fund and you have management fees and you can spread that risk across more investments than are possible for a meaningful percentage of equity as an individual.
So just for the record, the fact that you do angel investments is also a result of the fact that you sold your own company back in 2004?
Yeah, 2009.
2009.
So I started
it was founded in
2001, sold it in 2010.
All right.
And I started angel investing. This is actually, I think, important to understand the genesis of the angel investing. I didn't start angel investing because I thought it would be a good investment of capital for financial ROI. I started doing it because I had fantasized about going back to school, maybe even business school, like Stanford Business School, and decided that I wasn't going to do that ultimately because there was a lot of theory and I just couldn't stomach it. But I would take the $120,000 that would have been spent over 2 years and use that as my angel investing tuition, basically.
Right.
And plan on, not hope to, but plan on losing all of that money, but learning enough over the span of 2 years that it would be greater than business school. So that was my objective. And
is it working out?
Yeah, so far no fatalities. So no deaths yet. I'm sure that'll change.
Have you had any exits yet?
I was going to say, also no big exits. So very curious to see how it shakes out. I'd say in the next 12 months or so, I'll have a better indication of whether I'm a monkey throwing darts at a newspaper or closer to someone who actually knows what they're doing.
How did you get to the Twitter seed round?
So with Twitter,
I assume investors were piling up on that one.
It was later on. Also with a lot of these companies, there is a distinct informational advantage to being in Silicon Valley.
Right.
And I'm not saying that Silicon Valley is the only place where there are good companies. It's not. I've invested in companies outside, Boulder specifically, but also Canada and other places. But it's a very tight community in Silicon Valley. So when you're friends with a lot of the founders, if someone's leaving a company and they're trying to offload some of their stock, there's an opportunity to get into a company that you might not, you definitely wouldn't otherwise have in, let's just say, Series A on the first pass. That's not going to happen for a lot of these. And that's how a number of those deals have happened.
So do you see yourself evolving into a fund at some stage? Or?
I don't have any plans to be in a fund. I may end up investing in more funds, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I tend to place fewer bets, actually exclusively now with companies where I can have a larger impact, and that necessitates some amount of time and limits the number of choices I can make, which is a good thing because it forces me to do more due diligence and actually get to know the founders and the business model very, very well. So I don't expect a lot of fund. I think there are more secure ways for me to generate income. But from a learning standpoint, I also find that I get more from focusing on a handful of companies, more of the Warren Buffett approach, and then letting them run their companies themselves, obviously, but being available, as opposed to doing the spray and pray index fund approach. I think the latter can be very, very effective, but you have to stick, I feel, with one or the other. It's very difficult to make it work if you start blending approaches because your rules change, and I think you have to have rules when you're investing.
So do you consider yourself to be a book author, a speaker, or an angel investor in the first place?
I would say first and foremost I'm a teacher, and that sometimes takes the form of books, oftentimes takes the form of the blog.
Diplomatic answer.
It's an accurate answer. But I also think that in the case of startups, I don't think I'm the best. I think I'm a better advisor than I'm an investor.
Right.
And that also comes down to teaching skill sets, whether that's helping with conversion and split testing, or doing media planning and messaging and outreach to celebrities, things like that.
So do you have any investments this year?
Let's see, who I invested in this year in 2010.
Yeah.
I do. I'd have to look at the list. Simple Geo is the most recent.
Right.
And then I'll be investing in a fund for the first time this week as well. I'm not going to mention which right now, but that'll be the first experiment with a fund. We'll see how it does.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Be sure to let us know which one.
I will. I mean, so far the lessons I've learned have more than compensated for the amount I've invested, even if I lose that entire amount.
Right.
Because of some of the lessons I learned while looking at how companies were being funded and sold, I was able to then learn the skill set necessary and the deal structures necessary to sell my own company. So right there in and of itself paid for everything within the first 2 months, basically. Right. I don't think that's typical. I think angel investing is very, very dangerous, and I think that the saying, the best way to make a small fortune is to start with a large fortune and angel invest is
right.
very, very accurate. So unless you have a distinct advantage with information that other people do not have, I would not assume because you're good at one thing, i.e. if you're a good entrepreneur, does not mean you're going to be a good angel investor at all, necessarily.
Right. Okay. So I didn't want to talk too much about the content of your book for our work week, obviously. But one question that I wanted to ask you was some of the advice in the book, stuff that you tell your startups, the startups you invest in on a regular basis? Which part of the book?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an entire section of the book. It's about 80 to 100 pages called testing the Muse. In this case, we're talking about startups, usually consumer-facing web startups, as opposed to lifestyle businesses. But the concept of testing, micro-testing, identifying your first target market and recognizing the target isn't the total market, but really phasing your customer acquisition in an intelligent way so one leads to the next. All of those things are applicable to the startups that I'm dealing with. The startups I'm dealing with are generally they might be as small as 2 technical founders, or they could be larger. They could be 100 employees, 150, but at the 100 to 150 point, they tend to have a lot of venture capital, and the more money you have, the more foolish a lot of decisions tend to be, because you feel like you have a lot more breathing room than you actually do. For those people, the testing is usually related to customer acquisition. For the smaller teams, it has to do with the minimally viable product, like Eric Ries style, and looking at conversion before you start driving traffic. Conversion flow, sign-up flow. So the testing, I mean, if people take anything from anything I talk about, I think the underlying thread is test your assumptions.
Testing.
Yeah, and that all applies.
Okay. So I assume you travel a lot. Do you see yourself expanding into angel investments outside of the United States at some point, or?
It's possible. I mean, I've invested in, I guess it's just one Canadian company, but I don't want to, until I've proven that to myself, to my satisfaction, that I know what I'm doing on some level.
Right.
I'm not going to be expanding much. And I mean, so far, on paper, the track record's awesome. On paper, I'm up.
It looks pretty impressive.
Like crazy. It looks great, but
no exit yet. So.
Yeah. So I mean, it's all fine and dandy when it's on paper. But
Exactly.
that doesn't mean anything to me. It just means that it's been fun so far, and I get a nice ego boost out of it. But until something sells, that doesn't translate into reality. So I'm open to talking to international companies. It's harder for me to help them,
right?
As easily as I can help somebody in the valley, for example.
Simply because of the being close to the startups and advising them on a regular basis.
It's a virtual world and we're all connected online and everything, but it still makes a big difference. If you want to grow quickly and meet a lot of the right people, get funded in a week and a half, I sometimes syndicate deals, so I sometimes help startups get to financed. It's just infinitely easier if I can have them go to a few lunches in Silicon Valley.
Well, the same goes for traditional VC as well.
Of course. Yeah. So.
It's okay. Final question: which of the startups are you most bullish on?
Most bullish on?
Yeah. Which one do you think will be the biggest winner?
Boy, probably not going to answer that, to be diplomatic. But most bullish on.
gut feeling?
I'm old school. The companies that are printing money and very, very profitable, I'm very bullish on. So I'm not sure which I can talk about, but I do think that depending on where they want to go, I think Shopify, I'm also involved with Shopify. I think they could do very well. They have a lot of flexibility.
I wasn't expecting that one.
I don't think most people would. They're quietly doing exceptionally well. I mean, there are others. I'm biased towards profit.
Right.
But ultimately, there are reasons why companies choose not to be very profitable. I know it sounds strange, but once you have revenue, then people are inclined to value the company based on a multiple of revenue. So if you can create a new ecosystem altogether, like Twitter, in some cases it doesn't behoove you to try to generate a lot of money, because even a lot won't be enough. If you have a perceived market cap or a real market cap based on funding of $1 billion plus, you're going to have to generate one hell of a lot of revenue to reach that same valuation based on a multiple of that revenue or EBITDA. So,
right.
But I had a company that my company never received outside financing and bootstrapped the whole thing. So I tend to feel most secure about the companies that have profit.
Right. So we'll keep an eye on Shopify.
Yeah.
So Timothy, thanks for the talk.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And enjoy Amsterdam.
Yeah, thanks. I will.